Today on the Topping Show, Bud Light releases an ad and of course it flops. Target turns out to donate to a group that promotes kids transition without parental knowledge or consent. Target also has a Zoom meeting that leaked. Trump gains 13 points in the polls while DeSantis loses 10 points in the polls. New York City halts bank deposits for quote-unquote not fighting discrimination. MoviePass rises once again from the grave. Disney versus Comcast. Comcast launches a streaming service. All that and much, much more on the Topping Show. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of Topping Show is sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency in IT security. Heck, I see their founder at least twice a day. Gotta say he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me, that's a joke. If you're an IT leader or a business owner, you need a little assistance, reach the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Now, going on to the business part of the podcast, you have Netflix users are irate and enraged as the password cracking leaks over into the US for their policies. Users are actually quitting, arguing that they are paying to use the devices, not where they are with the devices, with the newest policy being Netflix is only going to give you a certain amount of devices in your home. So if you travel for work, you're shit out of luck. Or if you have kids in college who are not in the household and you want to share passwords, too bad. They have to have a paid sharing plan, which comes in about $8 per month. Now, other countries, it's estimated that 25% of UK subscribers also share their passwords, and there are now 103 countries that this policy is rolled out to. The hypocrisy is a little unpalatable for most because Netflix famously, just winding back the clock a couple of years, in 2017 they were tweeting saying to share a password is to love someone, or something cliche around that, because at the time the shareholders in the company wanted to build up the largest number of users. Regardless of profitability, they wanted to show that they had the biggest user base, which of course it attracts more investors because more people are using your product and your service. You see this with other media companies, especially social media companies like Facebook, Twitter. There are a lot of bots on those platforms, but there wasn't really much of an incentive to get rid of them because the bigger the platform looked, the more profitable they thought it could eventually become. Now, time shall tell to see how many people in the United States actually quit Netflix because of this policy. Again, it's a hyper-competitive industry now with more people having streaming platforms than you can count and less exclusive content. One of the reasons Netflix flourished is because they had these exclusive contracts with producers and licensing companies that hold the intellectual property for a lot of the materials, such as the classic TV show Friends. I believe a couple years ago, Netflix paid $100 million to license that intellectual property for 1 year, because they knew people would be willing to pay for Netflix subscription on that show alone, and it did increase their user count at the time. So we'll see how long the pushback is publicly. If more and more people quit, maybe they roll the policy back, but given the hyperinflation and just the cost of everything going up and the businesses needing to become more profitable, I suspect they're going to try to keep it in place unless a disproportionate amount of people quit. Speaking of lack of profitability, you have MoviePass coming back from the grave. Now, they went bankrupt a couple years ago. Maybe about 4 years ago, they, rest in peace, they bit the dust. Now, the concept at the time was sound. It was an interesting idea. It was a situation in which users could pay a monthly subscription. At the time, it was $10 per month, I believe, and they could see as many movies as they want. Or no, I digress. The old deal was $9.95 per month, and they could see any movie they want. Which, of course, they bled money, as in they lost money, and that's why they went bankrupt, because it was a good idea, like a really good idea for end users. It helped them immensely, especially moviegoers or movie fanatics, whatever they call themselves, in terms of, there's a club or name for everything, but it allowed them to see a bunch of movies essentially for free, because if a movie's $10 after 3 movies, there's a lot of upside. Now, MoviePass was paying the movie. It was a shared situation where the movie theaters, they weren't too happy too, because they were getting some money back from MoviePass. So it caused them to go bankrupt, and now they're relaunching the idea, now limiting it to about 4,000 movie theaters in the United States. And now this is bad marketing. The price is $10 per month, which, again, it sounds silly, but $9.99, like $9.99, psychologically seems cheaper than $10, even though after taxes it is more than $10. But you see this in retail all the time. Go shop for anything at a store, You see milk is $2.98 per gallon. You see water for, bottle of water is 99 cents. It's always below that number because it sounds cheaper. For them not to just lower it by a penny just to get that psychological edge and that advantage, that was silly. I can't believe they fell for that. That almost belongs in the business blunder this section of the day. But another interesting thing is now you can only see 1 to 3 movies. And it's $10 per month. So as long as you see 2 movies, you're basically getting a good deal. Because I think the average movie ticket these days is between $9 and $13 per ticket. Of course, then you have to buy, or many people think they have to buy, the concessions with the popcorn, which of course is where they make all their money and the profit. Most of the money when you go to the movie theater, the large part of that ticket goes to the actual producers of the movie. The movie theaters thrive on the actual concessions, which is why I see so many movie theaters expanding into alcohol products as well as high-end food products with even grilled hamburgers and what have you. It'd be nice if one of them did grilled salmon. But I digress. So it'll be interesting to see if this concept revived again. Will it be good? Will it be a mutual win for the movie theaters as well as MoviePass? Now, the other thing that MoviePass has to compete against now is the theaters themselves. So, very similar to Netflix, when the concept first came out, there wasn't really a lot of competition for a item like a MoviePass. Anecdotally speaking, I couldn't think of one, although I really don't see that many movies. But now, individual movie theaters as well as movie theater chains, such as the big ones being AMC and Cinemark, they have their own subscription services. So you can pay them, and of course you're limited to their movie theaters, but those companies have a plethora of movie theaters, with AMC being headquartered in Kansas, then you have Cinemark being headquartered over in Plano, Texas. So it'll be interesting to see if, and the movie theaters did agree, MoviePass is coordinating this with them. So time shall tell to see if this is an additional benefit, or given all the information that's out there, the competition, and just the trends of people seeing more and more things at home, I can't help but think this will just be returning back to the grave in a couple years later. Now, going back to the theme of streaming having an unlimited amount of competition, you have Disney and Comcast fighting over Hulu. Now, Disney will most likely purchase it because they have a majority share in Hulu. They have about 66%, so 2/3 share, so they have over a majority. And Comcast currently owns 33% of Hulu. And in terms of a business blunder, Fox News or Fox, they invested in Hulu and then they sold it off. Brilliant business decision. They had about 33% stake in the company. And of course now, Disney's going to have to buy out Comcast share for a pretty penny. Now, the controversy or the back and forth discrepancies come with how they choose the valuation. Comcast is going to say, well, this is worth way more than just the stock market price. And when you look at acquisitions throughout history, you usually pay a premium, sometimes 10% over the current stock market value. So it'll be interesting to see where they actually choose. And more importantly, it took years, but Hulu just now became profitable for the first time, giving it an extra premium of value where many streaming services bleed for years, as in they lose money for years, hoping they'll actually make a profit, similar to publishing music, magazines, even books. It's rudimentary to say, but it's a little bit of a crapshoot. You have to hope that you find that one that makes it profitable. And of course, I think Hulu can be partially contributed because of the distribution rights for Rick and Morty, and I believe there's a funny one with the aliens. I think it's Solar Opposites. They have a couple streaming exclusivity contracts with a couple of those creators, which draws people to the platform. Now, right now, you have Disney and Comcast arguing what's the current value, and they're billions apart. So it'll be interesting if they come together. Comcast is also arguing that Disney is devaluing and diminishing Hulu's value because Hulu is not in international markets, which that seems to be a business blunder in and of itself. Again, this is a streaming service. It's not like you're shipping a book in the mail. With international e-commerce and commerce, you really just have to worry about local setting up. I believe you have to have local sales taxes for all the different countries. And as long as you collect sales taxes and pay those countries the taxes from that, most of them are pretty happy with you to actually do business with them. So it's interesting that Disney, of course, being a huge global company, why weren't they pushing Hulu to also have a huge global footprint? That's beyond me. Now, other business news, of course, more streaming. Comcast is going to launch their own streaming service called Now TV, which, it's not the worst. I think the worst has to go to HBO Max, relabeling or renaming themselves Max. That's probably the worst name in terms of who the hell knows what that means. I mean, the pinnacle of the company, what made HBO unique was they were one of the first subscription models where they shipped you a box to get around the FCC because it wasn't being broadcasted publicly. It was your little cable box modem thingamajig. And instead of using that iconic name, HBO, which everyone knows, they chose, and then they became HBO Max. They go, we're just going with Max, which also is a person's name, which also makes it more confusing. Business blunder again. But now Comcast is launching their Now TV, which also includes Peacock, which is, in my opinion, really only known because they were the company, NBC owns Peacock, which means they have the exclusive distribution rights for their intellectual property, which realistically is only known as The Office. That's the big success they've had in the past couple of decades in terms of actual production where it made a profit and it was just a huge cultural hit and many people tuned in. And now Comcast is going to launch that, so Peacock will be included in Now TV. It'll cost $20 per month. Again, a marketing fail. Why not make it $19.99? What is with these companies not understanding basic human psychology around pricing? Do they really need that one penny? Again, it'll probably be, if it's $19.99 or even if it's $20, it'll be $21 or whatever it is after the tax, depending on your local sales taxes between city, state, local. But again, so that's going to be $20 a month at a time where people are hurting, fiscally speaking, hyperinflation, 40-year high, and you have all these streaming platforms competing for the end user's dollar. Do people really want to pay one extra? So this will start off being mainly for their Xfinity internet customers, but I suspect they're going to want to grow that platform eventually to go to all users. Needless to say, I think people are going to, the piracy rates these days for media, you might have a resurgence of LimeWire, which was a defunct BitTorrent torrenting platform back in the day. They might still be around, but so this is going to have 40 channels or 40 live channels and 40 free channels which are supported with advertisements. But again, how many streaming services do people need? I mean, so much of people's lives just watching all of that. Although tuning into this is invaluable and I highly recommend it, but I also say, you know what the best streaming service is? A book. It's great. There's no commercials. You can flip when you want. You don't have to worry about adjusting the volume. Maybe the light in the ceiling. But again, how many streaming services do you need? I'm a little old school, but pick a book.